You can't make someone apologize, but you can inspire them to want to. And when it comes to avoidant people, the ones who pull away when things get too real, this difference changes everything. You know that feeling when someone hurts you and instead of owning it, they distance themselves even more? You replay what happened 100 times in your head thinking, if they just understood how I feel, they'd say sorry. But here's the truth. Avoidant people don't respond to pressure. They respond to safety. When you chase, explain, or try to make them see your pain, they feel trapped. And when they feel trapped, they protect themselves by shutting down, withdrawing, or even blaming you. So the magic isn't in convincing them you were right. It's in showing them, without anger, without pleading, that you're calm, grounded, and unthreatening. Because only when they feel safe will they drop their armor long enough to feel remorse. You see, when you stop trying to pull an apology out of someone, you create space for them to step toward you. That's when the avoidant person starts thinking, wait, I might have pushed away someone who actually understands me. And that's when the apology comes. Not because you demanded it, but because you modeled emotional security. When you're dealing with someone with avoidant tendencies, the biggest mistake you can make is to push for resolution before they're ready. It's not that they don't care or that they're incapable of understanding your pain. It's that their emotional wiring makes closeness feel unsafe when there's conflict or tension. So when you come at them with strong emotion, even if it's justified, what they feel isn't your pain, it's pressure. And pressure is the exact thing that triggers their defenses. They don't hear, I'm hurt. They hear, you're failing me. And that thought sends them straight into self-protection mode. Safety then becomes the foundation of any meaningful change. Safety isn't about being overly gentle or pretending everything is fine. It's about creating an emotional environment where the other person doesn't feel attacked or judged. When someone feels safe, their guard comes down naturally. They stop defending and start listening. That's the moment when self-reflection can happen, when they can finally see, maybe for the first time, that their behavior hurt you. Without safety, that realization never arrives because their entire energy is spent avoiding shame or rejection. The irony is that many people think being calm means suppressing their feelings. That's not what emotional safety looks like. You can express how you feel, but the energy behind your words matters more than the words themselves. If your tone says, I need you to fix this right now, they'll shut down. If your tone says, I'm not here to attack you, I'm just being honest, something shifts. The avoidant person begins to sense that this is not another emotional ambush. It's an invitation to connect. It's also worth understanding that avoidant people often grew up in environments where emotional expression felt unsafe or overwhelming. So when they sense tension, their instinct isn't to repair, it's to retreat. The best way to reach them is not by matching their withdrawal with frustration, but by modeling steadiness. You're showing them through your behavior that emotions don't have to be dangerous, that being close doesn't mean losing themselves. That's safety. When you choose calm over chaos, you actually disarm their fear response. You're telling their nervous system, you're safe here. This doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior or letting things slide. It means holding your boundaries without emotional fireworks. You can say, that really hurt me, and I need space right now, in a tone that is composed, not cold. You can walk away with dignity instead of slamming the door. Over time, that calm presence becomes magnetic. The avoidant person begins to associate you with peace, not pressure. That's when remorse starts to rise, because they finally feel safe enough to face their own mistakes without fear of punishment. Safety is not weakness. It's the most powerful position you can take. When you stop trying to pull an apology from someone and instead show them that you're a stable, safe place to be honest, you stop triggering their defenses and start awakening their conscience. When you chase validation from someone who's avoidant, you unintentionally feed the very dynamic that keeps you both stuck. The moment you start pleading for them to understand you, to see your pain, to admit what they did wrong, you give them emotional control over the situation. They sense that you need something from them, and to an avoidant person, that need feels suffocating. It reminds them of every moment in their life when closeness meant pressure, when love came with the expectation to perform or fix. Their instinctive response is to retreat, to create space, to reclaim control by pulling away. The more you chase, the more they run. It's a heartbreaking cycle because your intention is connection, not control. You're not trying to manipulate them. You just want acknowledgement. But to an avoidant person, even a simple request for reassurance can feel like a demand. That's why it's so important to shift your focus from convincing them to understand you, to grounding yourself in your own emotional stability. When you stop chasing validation, you signal that your peace of mind no longer depends on their reaction. You stop handing them the power to define your worth or dictate your emotional state. Avoidant people are hypersensitive to emotional intensity. It's not that they don't care, it's that they equate intimacy with the loss of autonomy. The more emotional weight they feel coming from you, the more they interpret it as pressure to be something they're not ready to be. But when you step back and focus on your own equilibrium, something fascinating happens. The dynamic shifts. They start feeling the absence of that chasing energy, the quiet confidence that says, I care about you, but I don't need to pull you toward me. That emotional independence is deeply attractive because it communicates safety. It tells them they can come close without being engulfed. Not chasing validation also means resisting the urge to over-explain yourself. You don't have to prove why you were right or why your feelings are justified. The more you try to make them see your perspective, the more you reinforce the imbalance. Where you're the one seeking and they're the one withholding, step out of that pattern. Let your actions show self-respect instead of using words to demand it. Your silence, your calm withdrawal, your focus on your own healing, those speak volumes. They send the message that you value yourself enough not to beg for emotional crumbs. Paradoxically, the moment you stop chasing is often the moment they start to notice what they're losing. Avoidant people don't respond well to emotional pressure, but they do notice emotional presence. When your energy changes from anxious pursuit to quiet strength, they begin to sense the difference. That's when reflection begins for them. They start wondering why the person who used to chase no longer needs to. That internal tension, that subtle awareness of your self-assurance creates space for accountability. By releasing the need for validation, you invite genuine connection, one that grows from mutual respect, not emotional dependence. Leading with self-respect means showing through your actions that your value doesn't rise or fall based on how someone treats you. It's not about acting indifferent or pretending you don't care. It's about knowing deep down that your worth isn't up for negotiation. When someone with avoidant tendencies pulls away, it can trigger every insecurity you have. You might start questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong, what you could have said differently, or how to make them come back. But the truth is, their withdrawal is rarely about your worth. It's about their discomfort with vulnerability. The more you center your energy on proving yourself, the more you lose the very quality that makes someone feel safe around you. Your grounded self-respect. Self-respect shows up in the small moments, not texting 3 times in a row when they go quiet, not bending your boundaries just to keep the peace, not explaining your feelings to someone who isn't ready to hear them. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know how I deserve to be treated, and I won't chase someone to convince them of it. That energy doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from inner peace. It tells the avoidant person without a word that you're not a threat. You're not trying to control them or force them into emotional territory they're not ready for. You're simply standing in your truth, steady and self-contained. What makes this so powerful is that avoidant individuals are often drawn to people who project calm assurance. They feel safest with someone who doesn't demand emotional performance, but who also doesn't crumble when they pull away. When you hold your boundaries without anger, you show them that relationships can exist without control or chaos. You show them that closeness doesn't mean losing themselves. Over time, that quiet strength becomes magnetic. They begin to sense that you're not chasing them because you need them. You're choosing them because you want to. That distinction awakens a sense of respect that no amount of pleading could ever create. Self-respect also means staying emotionally honest. You can acknowledge when you're hurt without dramatizing it, and you can express disappointment without resentment. It's not about being stoic or detached. It's about being steady. You're not suppressing emotion. You're mastering it. When you communicate from a place of calm honesty rather than emotional chaos, you model the kind of security that avoidant people secretly crave. They start realizing that your stability is not a facade. It's who you are. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to prove your worth, that's when people start seeing it. The the avoidant person begins to notice that you're not reacting the way they expect. They're used to people chasing, arguing, or collapsing into neediness. But you're different. You hold space, you stay grounded, and you walk away when respect isn't mutual. That quiet strength unsettles them in the best way possible. It makes them see you as someone they can't afford to lose. Leading with self-respect doesn't guarantee an apology, but it guarantees your peace. And that peace often becomes the very thing that inspires remorse. Showing empathy without making excuses is one of the most delicate but powerful things you can do when dealing with someone who has avoidant tendencies. It means you can understand where their behavior comes from without justifying the pain it caused you. This balance is crucial because avoidant people are often caught between two conflicting desires, wanting closeness but fearing it at the same time. When conflict arises, they instinctively protect themselves by distancing, deflecting, or minimizing. If you react with anger or blame, they retreat further. But if you show empathy, if you can see their fear without excusing their hurtful behavior, you bypass their defenses. You create an emotional opening where understanding can exist without losing your boundaries. Empathy isn't about saying, it's okay that you hurt me, or pretending it didn't matter. It's about saying, I understand why you might have reacted that way, but it still affected me. This kind of communication keeps the conversation in the realm of emotional truth instead of emotional warfare. Avoidant individuals are often terrified of shame. They fear being seen as the bad guy because that feeling of failure triggers deep insecurity. When you show empathy, you help them separate accountability from humiliation. They can acknowledge what they did wrong without feeling annihilated by guilt. That's when real reflection happens. The key is to hold compassion and self-respect at the same time. Too much compassion without boundaries turns into enabling, where you excuse poor behavior to keep the peace. Too much boundary without empathy becomes coldness, which reinforces the avoidant person's fear that connection leads to rejection. The middle ground is strength with softness, firm in your standards, gentle in your tone. You can say, I can see that this was hard for you, and still add, but it hurt me when you shut down. That balance disarms defensiveness because it communicates care without codependence. When you lead with empathy, you also model emotional maturity, show that it's possible to stay present in discomfort rather than running from it. That's something many avoidant people have never experienced in relationships. They're used to emotional explosions or silent treatments, not calm understanding. Your ability to stay grounded in empathy teaches them on a subconscious level that emotional intimacy doesn't have to be dangerous. It can feel safe, kind, and stable. Over time, that experience can soften their instinct to withdraw. It's important to remember that empathy doesn't mean absorbing their pain or fixing them. It's about seeing the human behind the behavior while staying true to yourself. You don't have to sacrifice your feelings to make space for theirs. You just need to hold both truths at once. When an avoidant person feels seen but not judged, safe but still accountable, they often begin to take responsibility naturally. The apology you once tried to pull from them starts to come on its own, not out of guilt, but out of genuine understanding. When you're dealing with someone who has avoidant tendencies, patience is not just a virtue, it's a strategy these individuals process emotions slowly and cautiously, especially when those emotions involve vulnerability or accountability. If you expect an immediate apology or a quick resolution, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Their instinct is to pull away from intensity, not to dive into it. But when you allow time and consistency to do their work, you create the space for their defenses to relax naturally. It's within that space, free of pressure and expectation, that genuine remorse can take root. Avoidant people often need distance to process what happened. They may seem cold or detached after a conflict, but beneath that exterior is usually confusion or shame. They don't know how to handle the emotional weight, so they retreat to regain control. If you try to rush that process by demanding answers or closure, it only reinforces their belief that emotions are overwhelming and unsafe. However, when you remain steady, when you don't chase, plead, or criticize, you become a quiet reminder that they can approach you without fear. That consistency builds trust over time. It tells them that emotional connection doesn't always end in chaos or confrontation. Consistency also means maintaining your own emotional rhythm. It's easy to oscillate between anger and affection when someone you care about withdraws, but emotional steadiness is what teaches them safety. You show them that you can handle both closeness and distance without losing yourself. You're not punishing them with silence or begging for their attention. You are simply giving them space while staying anchored in your own self-worth. That kind of stability is magnetic. It draws avoidant people back because it feels different from what they're used to. They begin to sense that you're not a threat to their autonomy, but rather a secure presence they can lean toward when they're ready. Time works in your favor when you lead with calm consistency. Even if they don't apologize right away, the distance gives them a chance to reflect without the weight of your expectations. Avoidant individuals often need to feel in control of their emotions before they can face someone they've hurt. By not forcing the issue, you give them the control they crave, but you also allow their conscience to emerge naturally. Guilt may not surface immediately, but once it does, it's more authentic because it wasn't coerced. That kind of apology, the one born from quiet realization rather than confrontation, carries far more meaning. What's most powerful about time and consistency is that they prove your emotional maturity. You're no longer reacting to their behavior, you're responding to your own values. You're showing that love can be steady, that care doesn't have to come with chaos, and that forgiveness doesn't require surrendering your dignity. The avoidant person begins to associate your presence with calm rather than conflict, reflection rather than fear, and in that safety, they finally find the courage to face themselves. And that's when the apology comes, slow but sincere, because it's grown from trust, not pressure, when it comes to getting an avoidant person to truly see your pain and take responsibility for it. It's never about control. It's about influence. You can't force someone to apologize, and the harder you try, the more they'll retreat into the walls they've spent years building. But when you change your energy, when you start leading with calm, grounded confidence instead of chasing validation, something powerful begins to shift. They start to feel safe, not cornered. They start to reflect, not defend. And that's when the apology comes, not as a reaction to pressure, but as a genuine act of awareness. What makes this work isn't a trick or manipulation. It's maturity. It's your ability to say, I can love you and still hold my boundaries. It's choosing peace over panic, composure over control. It's understanding that connection grows not from demanding understanding, but from embodying it yourself. When you show safety, empathy, self-respect, and patience, you become the kind of person who draws honesty out of others effortlessly. You become the calm after the storm that reminds them what true emotional security feels like. So, the next time someone hurts you and disappears into silence, don't rush to fill that space. Let your steadiness speak louder than your words. Let time reveal what pressure never could. Because when you stop chasing closure, you create the space for real accountability and for a kind of healing that no apology alone can give you. Thank you for listening and for showing up for your own growth. The fact that you're willing to understand rather than react already sets you apart. Remember, real strength doesn't shout, it stands firm. Keep your peace, trust your worth, and let patience do what pressure never will. I appreciate your time, your openness, and your heart. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.